Hi everyone, Jen here for Jen Goodall Designs and Country Craft Creations today. I'm going to do a quick walkthrough of my completed forest and stream folio that I did. I'm going to grab a ruler here so I can go over some of the measurements of the decorating that I did. And I will tell you, I used the black artisan as my base. I used lightweight chipboard. I used some, I do believe I put some craft in here. I don't remember. No. What I did use was the natural artisan on this as well. It's kind of an ivory. And I did use distress ink in vintage photo on this, just like I did my little mini album. So this one is a folio. Like I said, soft-sided. And I did use this image again. I know you're probably going, oh, Jen, you already used that. But I used the whole image this time as my cover. This is meant to be a simple little album folio slash notebook holder that can go on a desk. It has pockets for receipts and different things, as well as a little notepad inside that I've fixed using the paper. So my spines on this, this is a trifold, so there are 3 panels and 2 spines that are 1 inch. The front panel is 5.5 by 7.5, and I have just used the artisan linen in 5 3/8 by 7 3/8. Then I did a 5 1/8 by 7 1/8 of the black, and I cut that image from the 8 by 8 down to 5 by 7. Have a simple ribbon closure here using the black seam binding. And when you open this up, so you're going to have this double pocket system here. Have a couple fun little tags, little flip open. You could put a little journaling card, note to self, something there. And I cut this paper from the 8 by 8 so I could get this image of the horse. I just loved that. Just going to stick these little guys back in here. And then the back one is a fun little photo mat using black artisan, 4.5 by 6, and it should be a half, but it looks like it's 6 3/8. And then my natural was 4 1/8 by 6 1/4, and I just added a little bit of that black seam binding so that it's easy to pull out of here. And then this panel, I put the map from the paper. I love this piece of paper, the map. I just put that and left it blank. You could add a pocket here if you want to stuff some more stuff in. Then when you open this up, the middle section is super fun. So what I have here is a cascading kind of waterfall flap system that has pockets on each one. So they graduate at 1/4 of an inch on the sides and bottom difference, and I used the same papers to kind of create a picture. And then I did add the artisan natural inked, and each one of these, like I said, is a different size, and I go over those in my tutorial, which will follow this video. So as you can see, each one of these has a little pocket. Like I said, this is meant for a desk so that you could have this to put your receipts or anything you want in. And then I added another one of these photo mats on the back side here. This one is, again, 4.5 by 6.5. And a little fun tuck spot. Added that little pop of, what do you call it? Pop of seam binding. And I will say, when I did the video, I had already decorated the inside lining of my book, and I wish I hadn't done this section because, as you can see, it's not a big eyesore, but I would have liked to have put this flap under the paper. So I would suggest when you follow the tutorial that you do put this flap under, or you wait to decorate this middle section until you have this done, and then you can add your paper and it will cover that. Okay, so then this back section here, another fun part is a box pocket, and I've used that little dog, one of the little dog cut aparts. I cut that down and put it on the box pocket. And then I just grabbed a notebook from my stash. I have a lot of little notebooks on hand that I pick up at different stores, dollar store, whatever. And I have added black artisan to this and some of the images. There's a little bit of the Forest Carta Bella Printed Cardstock on the back of this. And I just wrapped it around. And then underneath here, I did use a slight bit of craft artisan so that I could tuck some seam binding in for a pin. And that just slips right down inside of there. Close up your book and slide that right inside there. And that is the walkthrough of my little folio here. Again, this is 5.5 by 7.5. I did this in lightweight chipboard. If you wanted it a little sturdier, you could use the heavyweight. And I will have my tutorial up next on how I made this. Have a wonderful day. I hope you enjoyed my walkthrough. Today I am making a folio using the Forest and Stream exclusive collection from Country Craft Creations. And I'm going to wrap this. I'm not using the lay flat method. This is going to be a fairly simple folio that is masculine. So I'm going to go ahead and make this using just a regular wrap method. And to do that, I have cut 2 pieces of the lightweight chipboard at 5.5 by 7.5, 2 at 1 by 7.5, and 1 at 5 by 7.5. And I've backed all of these pieces with the score tape sheets. And what I'm going to do is just burnish out all of my score tape sheets really quick. And I have cut paper, 2 sheets at 12 by 9.5. And it goes all the way across. So I'm not going to be able to use my scoreboard for the whole item, for the whole length of it, but I will be able to use it for the beginning, and then I can line the rest up as I go without my scoreboard. I'm also using my spacer bars from Country Craft Creations, and I have chosen the black artisan for the outside of my folio. I will be using the gray artisan for the flips and such on the inside. Those are both very good colors with the Forest and Stream. So I'm going to take my first piece of 5.5 by 7.5, and I need to grab my little pokey tool here, or whatever you want to call this thing. And I am going to peel all that off. And then I am just simply going to use my spacer bars as a guide to get this right where I want it. And that will give me my first piece, nice and neat. So next what I want to do is make sure I get 1/8 of an inch of space between my 1.5, or excuse me, my 1 by 7.5 and that 5.5 by 7.5. So I am just going to peel this off, and I just use scraps of my score tape sheet. So I'm going to actually add a little glue to the edges. I use I cut off of the score tape sheets. So I am just going to grab some glue and put it on the sides. And I am going to grab one of my spacer bars, and I'm going to put it right up against that chipboard. Nice and flush. Because these are 1/8 of an inch wide, and that's the amount of space that I want. And then I can simply set this down, and I will have that nice even 1/8 of an inch space between. Just want to smooth that out. Now I can start my next 5.5 by 7.5, and then we will have to take it off of the scoreboard. Or actually I can flip it around and do it upside down. We'll do that, and I can show you how this works. So I'm going to peel this off. And again, I want to grab a spacer bar, and I'm going to butt it up against that chipboard, and this up against the bottom and the spacer bar. And again, we're going to get that nice flush 1/8 of an inch of space. Get that all smoothed out, and then I'm going to flip this, and I'm going to have a little extra room. So And I put my 1-inch bar down, and that one went on. It looks like a little bit, we have a little bit more space here, but that's okay. Let me think here. I need this to be flush though, so I'm not going to be able to do it on the scoreboard unless I pull it over. Let's see if this will work. We will try it so that I can keep that inch going all the way down. All right, this will work. So I'm going to grab my next 1 by 7.5. Will be the next piece. Peel off my backing of my score tape. And you can use glue. I just prefer score tape when I'm making a cover because it doesn't leave a bunch of bumpies with your glue. The glue has a tendency to leave little lumps and bumps, and I just didn't want that. So just make sure that this is nice and straight. I'm going to grab my spacer bar, put it up against my chipboard again, and then I can put this down right in there. And we get, that looks a little skinnier, but the eyes can play tricks. So hopefully it's correct when I get this done and I don't have a big boo-boo. All right, so I got that cleaned up as best as I could, and I will be able to flatten that out a little better with the bone folder. Just make sure that your pieces all measure the same height, or this wrap method does not work very well. I'm going to take a gun, ATG gun, and I am just going to run score tape all the way down. All the way down and all the way on the outside of our other piece here. So the black paper, and then on the outside, and then our chipboard on the inside. I'm going to take my artisan glue, and you won't be able to see all of this in the frame, but I am just simply going to run a bead of glue down the chipboard. This will help it line up a little bit better. And then I just want to start bending this. And I want to do it from the middle out is usually your best bet, so that you get a nice even fold. It's going to be a little tougher over here where I made my little boo-boo, unfortunately. But I will be covering that with paper, so in the end, that is not going to be an issue. Okay, and then I'm just going to run my bone folder across the top to kind of try to straighten out, especially where I made that little size error. Okay, it's a little crooked, but it will work. My bottom area here looks great. So we will probably make that boo-booed area the bottom of the folio. I run my tape down both sides. Noisy thing, isn't it? Run that bead of glue down all of my chipboard and bend. And you can turn it all the way over and bend if you have the desk space to do it with this long piece. That also helps because it's going to flatten the paper a little more evenly. All right, so now we have this. I'm just going to go in. Now what we want to do is we want to bend, but don't glue yet, your end pieces. So the sides here, we want to get those burnished nicely, but we're going to be cutting part of them off. So we want to make sure that we get a nice fold there. One side will probably be longer. I did not do a bunch of math with this folio. So you may get one side that's a bit longer. And that's fine. You're going to cover it on the inside with paper anywho. So it will work just fine. All right, so now you have this fun, and I'm going to sit here really quick, and we are going to miter. So you'll want to miter these. Go right where that chipboard is, just a little out from it, and miter. Do the same thing on the other side. Just kind of look at where your bend is. And if you need to make it a little bit more obvious, just burnish it a little better with your bone folder than what I did. Again, I'm just going to look at where my fold is, and I am going to miter and miter. Okay. So then what we're going to do is we are going to do the ends. We're going to put some glue on the inside here to help with the folding. And then just cover that flap with glue. Pull that up and over so you get a nice clean fit. And this is the old school way, obviously, to wrap. You could do this doing the lay flat method if you prefer. It is possible to do it in that method as well. Okay, let me go do my other side here. Just add the glue to that flap. Pull up and over. And do that in the middle. That gives you a much better even with the paper. It makes the paper look a little more even when you put it down. And I got a lot of glue in mine. It's just spewing everywhere. And not enough glue on this side. And this is just our cover, so have no fear. A lot of this will be covered with paper. If you have little glue blowouts, they will be covered with paper. You won't see it. So now what you want to start doing, I'm going to flip this the right direction. And we just want to start bending at those folds. We're not going to do any burnishing just yet. We just want to slightly bend everything. Then you can start burnishing. So I'm going to take a bone folder, and I am just going to go up into that crease. And I'm going to do the same thing here as I fold. Right now we're basically trying to make sure that the fold where the paper meets the chipboard is done. We will cover this with paper. So this is what you will have. This fun little folio like so, okay? Now, if you want to, you can carefully burnish each one of your folds. Especially if they're overly rounded and you don't like that look. It's very easy to just go in, burnish them down both sides. And we will do this again once we add paper to the inside to line our album. Well, folio, sorry. It is a folio. And the reason for this being 5 rather than 5.5 is so that it stays inside the album. If you did it at 5.5, this would bow a little bit more. And I didn't want that, so I made mine like so. So this is going to have some graduated flaps here with pockets. We will have some a pocket system in the back, and then the front is going to have a box pocket to hold a pen and a notebook. So I will be back with the piece that needs to go on the inside and finish this up. Okay, so now I've cut two pieces at 3.5 by 7 3/8. These will cover our spines on the inside. And I'm just going to use glue for these. And I like to put a little bit of glue inside where my chipboard is to help loosen up those fibers a little bit. Just on the inside, like so. And I'm going to go ahead and put this down. You'll have just a tiny little bit of space on the top and the bottom when you put this on. And we're just going to burnish that out nice and neatly. And we're going to put the other one on. And I should have put that on the other side because that's going to show. So I will have to find a way to black that out. We want to put the where I wrote it face down. So I'm going to do this one the correct way. And we're going to place that one down. Try to get it as evenly distributed on either side of your spine as you can, eyeballing it. I did not measure mine. You can if you like. Just make sure everything is nicely burnished. And give it a little second or a couple minutes probably to dry before doing your burnishing for the spines, because you don't want this paper to ripple. And if you watch, we'll see if mine is going to. I'm just going to very gently with my bone folder start working that before I fold. And it seems to be okay. Sometimes your paper will try to buckle, and you don't want that. So I'm going to try doing this as much in camera as I can. I'm usually one that uses the lay flat method for everything. However, I wanted to make this folio a little quicker. And because of that, I decided to do it this way. But my go-to is definitely the lay flat method. I try to use that method with every album. And don't worry about the little, if you have a bone folder like mine that sheds a little bit, it's totally fine. It'll wipe off. You just take a damp cloth and wipe it off of your paper. All right. Looks like we're good. See, no more white flakes. They just wipe off. Just make sure that everything turns and bends, and you don't want to force it because you don't want to crack your paper. So just make sure that everything is fitting and everything bends the way that you want it to. And there we will have our base of our folio, just like so. All right, so next I am going to decorate the inside of this, and then I will show you what is going inside of it. All right, so now we're going to work on the inside. I have already added paper to line the inside, and I did not double mat this. This is just a single mat on top of the black artisan. And so you have 5.5, 1, 5.5, 1, and 5. So what you're going to cut, if you're doing it this way, is 5 3/8 by 7 3/8 for your two inner panels here. These are 7/8 by 7 3/8, and then the end one is 4 7/8 by 7 3/8. And I just took two pieces from the 12-inch collection, and I put them all together. I cut them in a line so that I got the same pattern, and then it starts to repeat here with the next page. just for a little bit more cohesiveness. So we're going to start by making a box pocket for our 5-inch. And what you will need for that is a 7-inch by 3.5-inch piece of paper. I am going to grab my envelope punch board because I want to put a notch in the top. Now this is going to hold a little notebook that I actually got from the dollar store, and I'm going to put a cover over it. It's just this fun little notepad, and I'm going to add a cover using the paper to make this a little prettier. You can use any notebook that you want. You can even make your own. So I'm going to grab my envelope punch board really quick here, and I can do it on here. It's fine. This is a 7-inch piece of paper, so I'm going to go over to 3.5, and I am going to punch out my notch like so before I do any scoring. That way I know I'm lined up in the middle. You can use a circle punch or any other type of punch that you want to make that notch. Now I'm going to put this on my scoreboard, and I am going to score. I'm going to put it in at the 7. I'm going to score at 1/2 and 1. And then I'm going to turn, and I'm going to do the same thing across the bottom. 1/2 and 1. Turn again. 1/2 and 1. Okay, and that's going to give you this fun little scored piece. I'm going to grab some scissors, and I don't need these bottom squares. So what I want to do is I want to cut these squares out, and then I'm going to do some mitering. So just cut along your score lines, that little 4 square off your bottom portion. If you cut right along the score lines, you will cut just what you need. And then I am going to miter this bottom one just slightly on all of these. And I will show you what this looks like when I am done with my mitering. So this is what you will have, okay? Essentially, we're making a box, but with as a pocket, okay? So what we're going to do is put this down. I'm going to move my scoreboard out of frame for a moment. And I am going to start folding and burnishing my score lines. Now, when you fold this bottom flap up, if you see that you have a little overhang there, just go ahead and clip that. We don't need to miter, but we need it to be nice and straight. And do that on both sides. My other side is quite straight. And then I want to push this other one up. And I'm also going to put that one down. And then we're going to do our side flaps as well. And we're going to do the same thing. Just make sure that you're in a line with that paper. Mine is. So I have no need for trimming, but if it's a little over, you can trim it. And then I'm going to do my other one. You just don't want everything rubbing. So if you get a little bit overhang, it will rub on your paper, and you don't want that. So this is what you will have when you are finished, okay? Now I want to go ahead and decorate this because I don't want to have to do this and push it down on the page. So what I have here for my box pocket, when it's done, it's going to be 5 inches, and it will be 2.5. So I'm going to grab probably one of these fun little dog photos that you get. Well, let's do the ducks. I like the ducks. This is pretty. Is it big enough? No, that's actually not quite big enough. I'm just looking through my cut-aparts that I have off to the side here. We could do this guy. I think I'm going to opt for something with a little more color. So what I'm looking for in my scrap bin here is just something that has a little pop of green, but it also has to be white enough. So when using scraps, that can be your challenge. So I'm going to grab all of my 8-inch collection and see what I have here. And I don't mind doing this along with you, hopefully. Just bear with me as I try to figure out what exactly I want to put there. I'm looking and looking and looking. I really want something with some color for that pocket. And I could do a little bit of the gentleman here with his gun and his hat. That's a little too long. Sometimes it's a challenge to find a piece that fits perfectly. I definitely, there's one. We'll use this guy. I was trying to find one that didn't have words on the top that we're going to notch out. I don't want to cut them out. So I'm going to go ahead and get my cutter, and I'm going to cut this guy out here. He's kind of brighter. So our pocket is 2.5. So actually, I don't know. Bear with me here, 2.5. So I'm going to have to cut quite a bit of him off. That's okay. We'll just take him over to 2.5. And then I am going to, oh, I like this map actually. Now that I look at this back piece, I think I'm going to use this. I don't know. I apologize. I'm going to go over to 5. And I didn't quite get that cut, so let's go back to our 2.5. Usually I have a different type of cutter. I'm just going to use my scissors to get that out, because we need to cut this down to 4 7/8 width and 2 3/8. But before I do that, actually I can do the 2 3/8. Let's do that. Let's get our 2 3/8 down. So that notch just before your 2.5. Just sliver that off a little bit. And I'm going to grab my envelope punch board once again. And I kept this at 5 so that I can line this up a little bit better. And this should work. And now I can take my paper and put it down, and you see that it lines up with that. But we're going to have to trim it on the sides, about 1/16 of an inch off each side. This is just how I do it to line up my notches. There's probably a much easier way, but I haven't found it yet. So I'm just going to go right there. And then I'm going to take this one right to that 4 7/8. And hope that I did it correctly. I love these dogs in this paper. It's just really pretty collection. And that'll do it. Might need to take just a tiny little sliver off of this side. Just enough to make a difference. And I'm going to go ahead and ink this because I am using Distress Ink and Vintage Photo, just like I did in the larger album, on all of my decorative papers. And I'm going to go ahead and do that so everything is cohesive. I love the way that the Distress Ink in the Vintage Photo goes so nicely with this paper collection. Gives it kind of a little more of a vintage vibe. So then I am just going to add, oof, I do like that map. I don't know. Let's put it on the paper. I think that would be too busy. Let's stick with the dog. I don't want it to get overly busy. So I am going to glue this on to my pocket first. If you can imagine, if you're trying to put a pocket down or a piece of paper down on a pocket that's already, you know, flattened, it's a little more difficult than if you just do it all at once. And as you can see, My method for notching it to get it right in the middle, it works for me. You may have an easier way to do it. Like I said, this is just how I prefer to do that. So next what we want to do is you are going to fold in your ends, and we're going to add a little bit of glue right to that bottom flap. And we are going to put down our pocket. Now I'm going to use some clips just to ensure that that stays nice and straight and gives it a chance to dry a little bit, like so. Okay, I'll do the same thing on the other side, just add a little bit of glue. And line your pocket up really, or your flaps up really well so that you don't have any bowing. It's very easy to want to push this in more than it needs to go. And if you do that and don't align your corners, you get a wonky pocket. So I'm just going to clip that and set it down for a bit. And we're going to move on to the middle while this is drying, and then we'll go back to that. So for the middle, I am doing a graduated flap pocket system. So what you're going to have is a 5 by 9.5 inch piece, a 4.5 by 9.25 inch piece, a 4 inch by 9 inch piece, and a 3.5 by 8 3/4 inch piece. This is my other pocket. So we're going to do that one. Let's do some scoring. These are super simple. I'm going to start with that larger piece, put it in at your 9.5, score at 1/2 inch, and at 7.5 inches. And that's going to give you a 2 inch portion on the bottom and your 1/2 inch flap on the top. I'm going to burnish all of that out. And I am going to miter the corners of this one ever so slightly. Now, before I push my pocket up, which is what this is down here, this will be a little tuck pocket for you can put receipts or things that you need to, reminders that this is meant for to go as part of a desk set. Like I said in the beginning, I'm pivoting a little and doing only a portion of this larger off the page project with this one, which is the portion that is on the page. So I'm doing this portion of it, and I will do the rest of the entire set that's going together at a later date. So I wanted to get this folio portion of it to you, and then you can decide if you want to create the other pieces that will go to this set in the future when I do that. So that's going to give you, as you can see, a 5 by 7, and this is going to be our first flap. Next, you're going to take your 4.5 by 9.25. We're going to score it as well at 1/2 inch, and we want 7.25, and that's going to give you your 1/2 inch and your 2 inch. Okay. And you can choose whether you want to miter or not on your flaps. I have yet to decide. Next is our 4 inch by 9 inch. Again, 1/2 inch, and this time 7. This is going to give us kind of a waterfall of pockets that are flaps. That can also be, like I said, utilized as a pocket, but it will have a 1/4 inch of space all the way around the sides and the bottom. The last one is our 3.5 by 8 3/4. We're going to score at 1/2 inch and 6 3/4. And that's going to give you your tuck pocket and your flap. Okay, now I am going to decorate these later. You can also leave them black if you like, but for now I just want to show you how I'm going to put these together. Now, you could do these the opposite way and actually put them in the book as a waterfall. I have enough space. I'm not too worried about the amount of bulk here in the middle because I have 1-inch spines. So I am just going to go through and get these nicely burnished so they're as flat as I can get them. And I will decorate these as I decide what I'm going to decorate them with. And then I will push this pocket up, but I will show you how to do one because I can slip the paper in. So the first one, our larger one, how you get these to be tuck pockets, super simple. We're just going to add a little bit of glue to either side, not a lot, just enough for it to stick. And put it down. And just burnish it out. And then once these dry, you will probably want to run your bone folder inside of that pocket just to make sure that everything is working. I can see this one is not quite there. So now I am going to put these all together and show you how I do that. So for this one, I am going to, I think I am going to miter these. You don't have to, it's optional. I'm just going to miter that, add glue to that flap. And then I want to put this so that I'm 1/4 inch in. Now you can measure if you want. I am just going to eyeball mine to the best of my ability. And then I'm going to hold it up and just make sure everything is in line. Okay. So as you can see, mine is a little off here. And I don't want that. So let me see what's going on here. I think I need to just line it up a bit better. And there we go. Okay. Not sure why that was happening. I'm just going to add glue to my flap again. Like I said, you can measure if you want this to be exact. My biggest thing is I want it to line up at the bottom, and mine isn't. And I think it's actually my score line down here. There we go. That's better. All right. It wasn't the top, it was the bottom. So you want to make sure you're lining this up with the bottom, the sides, and that the top is all together. And then I'm just going to lift this up and give this a decent burnish on the inside as well. Get rid of any excess glue. And we will move on to our next one. I'm going to go ahead and miter those sides. Again, optional. You don't have to miter. Add my glue. And again, I'm going to eyeball this as best as I can to get my 1/4 inch on either side. And I'm going to look at the bottom, and that's good. Open it up. I still feel as if this one is just a wee bit off, but that's all right. All right. One more to go. Miter my corners. Give that a really good burnish. And eyeball this one. All right. That one needs to go up just a little bit. And there we go. So it's kind of like a pyramid or a waterfall. I mean, you could call this probably many, many things. It's just a way to graduate your papers. And then now you have this one cohesive piece. Just want to make sure all of these are going well together, that you don't have any, like this one needs a bit more glue right here. I want to make sure that everything stays together. I don't want any of these to come apart. And then this will simply go right in that middle section, like so. So when it lays down, you will have this. And then I'm going to have a tuck pocket underneath that you'll, or you could add a magnet if you prefer a magnet closure. I still have a little lifting going on here. I don't want that. No, no, no. Let's see what's going on here. Okay, so now I'm just going to add glue to this flap, just that back one. And I am going to eyeball this as well into the middle of my page. As best as I can. Now you will have more space at the bottom, but that's okay because we are going to have our, oh boy, we are going to have paper on the bottom, so it will all line up when we're done. All right, make sure this is not hanging over. And it gives you a little bit of bulk there at the top, but it's not a lot, it's slight. And I am having some struggles here. Just going to go in with my bone folder and get that down better. I didn't go quite up to the top of the page enough, so this is what you will have, and mine is very, very, very crooked. And I don't want that. There we go. And like I said, I will go through and I will be fixing these. I will decorate them and then I will add my, I will go ahead and do the pockets, the tuck pockets. So for now, I'm just going to paper clip that. And we're going to add a strip of paper across the bottom here. That is 5.5. It's kind of a little bit less, if I remember correctly, because, yeah, I skimmed just a little bit off of that. No, it's 5.5. 5.5 by 1.5, 1 3/4. And I'm just making this a little tuck pocket. So we're just going to put glue on 3 sides. You can make this a gusseted pocket if you prefer. I did not want it to be used for anything overly large. You just need to make sure that your book moves with it there. Your folio. Also, I was going to mention that with this folio, if you don't want it necessarily this stiff, you can make this with heavier cardstock, like the 100-pound Artisans, rather than using the lightweight chipboard that I used. That is definitely an option. All right, so for this panel here, we're going to do a pocket system on this as well. So I have cut a 6.5 by 4.5 piece of paper. And we are going to, let me set this out of frame for a moment. 6.5 by 4.5. So put it in your scoreboard at 6.5, score at 1/2, score at 6, turn, and then score again across the bottom at 1/2. And then we're just going to miter these corners. You can cut straight across like so, or you can choose to cut the square out and then miter. It is your preference. Okay, so this is going to be a gusseted pocket, so more items can fit. But it will also have a tuck pocket on the front portion. So I'm just pushing down all of my flaps, getting those nicely burnished. And I have now a 5.5. So I should have probably put this in my machine a little before, but we have 5.5. So we need 2 3/4. And we are going to do that like so. Then I'm going to take a 5.5. And I'm not quite sure what I cut this one to, but I'll let you know. So this is 5.5, and it is 2 inches. And that's going to be a front pocket. A little tuck pocket for the front of the pocket. And for that, back to that 2 3/4. Punch it. And I don't want to adhere this yet, but when I do, because I want to decorate first, and this is actually a little longer, I want to put this on here gluing as a tuck. So glue on both sides and across the bottom and adhere that. But I'm going to put this portion on for you. As you can see, this goes about halfway up the page. So we're going to add glue to our flaps. And put this down on our paper. And you want this to go closer to the outside than the inside, because you don't want to be in the way of your book turning. You don't want it to hang out, but you don't want it to be in the way. So make sure you fold your book. You almost want to put it right next to that patterned paper and give yourself that little bit of space, because now, as you can see, it doesn't get hung up when I try to turn it. And that's what I want. I don't want any sticking. And now you have that pocket. And then, like I said, this pocket will be on the front. So this is kind of a little organizer. What I am creating for my off the page, I'm not sure you call it off the page. It's just what I was calling it, is a desk set. So I will be using calendar to make a little calendar with an easel, as well as this notebook holder and a couple other items that will go with this desk set. And I will, like I said, bring the rest of that set to you in the near future. So now that our little box pocket is adhered and nice and dry. See, I did get this one a little off, but it should be okay. We're just going to add glue to our flaps. Okay. And we want to bring this into our back portion. Put it all the way down on that patterned paper. Because, again, we need this to close. So make sure that everything is closing. And you're just going to go in with your bone folder. I'm going to use this one. It's a little flatter. And I just want to burnish those down as good as I can with this. And I want to push this up. Good way to make sure that it's not going to adhere to your score line is to put a bone folder in there and just make sure that everything is okay. And when we turn this, everything closes, which is what I wanted. All right. So we're going to let that dry. And as you see, once we get this decorated, this will fit nicely right inside there. Super fun. So I'm going to go ahead and just decorate this. Now I have a 4x6 notebook is what I picked up. I'm going to go ahead and put this on here. And I am going to decorate this cover just using Black Artisan 4x6. I will cover this, and so it's a little stiffer. And then I'm going to add the pattern paper to the front, probably one of the pictures that goes, you know, one of these lovely cut aparts like so. Okay, and then I will be decorating my front and covers. All right, so for the closure, I'm going to use black seam binding just because it kind of blends in with my project. And I am going to take some 1/2 inch score tape, put a little piece right around the middle of this book here. Before I decorate, I want to make sure I do this under my decorating. And I want to figure out right about where that's at. Cut another little piece or tear it off. And I'm going to put that one right about here. And what I'm going to do is simply use black seam binding. And my little trick before I decorate is just to put my seam binding down onto a piece of score tape so it stays. Tie the end off in a knot because it will fray. If you don't, you can use fray stop or glue if you choose to do it that way. But as you can see, seam binding does fray a little on the ends, and that will help you with that. Go ahead and tear this piece off. Put my other piece of seam binding on. Tie that other end. And I may find that I want to cut this shorter. I'm just showing you how I tie the ends off. Pretty simple stuff. And then when this is papered, we will be able to just pull this closed and it will hold our folio closed. Once there's paper on there, it'll hold it properly. All right. So that will be the folio closure. So this is my folio. The next things I'm going to do is go ahead and decorate this, and then I will have a walkthrough of how I decorated it and explain that to you. But I hope you've enjoyed this fun little folio, and I will try to get the rest of the set that I am making that goes with this created in the next, as soon as possible. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and grab this paper. If you need to make a masculine project, this forest and stream paper is perfect. And I will be back. Have a wonderful crafty day. Bye-bye.